Just what is the ideal family size for an American today? What do you think is the ideal number of children for a family to have? Well, that's a question that George Gallup, the founder of the Gallup poll, first asked back in 1936, middle of the Depression. Bottom line, as of today, Americans say 2.5 kids. That's ideal. Go all the way back to 1936, Americans said 3.6 children. So clearly there has been a transition. Look at this graph, which shows you in a little more detail where the change happened. It was between our 1967 poll and then our 1973 poll, where the ideal number of children went from 3.4 down to 2.8. The ideal number of children dropped to 2.4 at a couple of points in 1990 and 1996. Another way of looking at this is by category. A little over half, 56% of Americans say the ideal number of children is 0 to 2. What about 3? That's 25%. A very small number, only 9% of Americans say that the ideal family size is 4 plus. We can again look at this over time. Let's look just at the percent who say 3 or more kids is ideal. Going back to 1967, 70% of Americans said 3 plus kids was ideal. That dropped all the way to 28% in 1986, went back up to 42% by the mid-90s, and is now settled back down. Today, just a third, 34% of Americans say that 3 plus kids is ideal. Couple of demographic breaks for you. First, by gender. Would you think that women would say the ideal family size is more kids than men would say? Well, if you did, you would be wrong. Women actually slightly less likely to say a big family is ideal than men. What about religion? Catholics ideally have had larger families. One might predict that today Catholics would say an ideal family is bigger than Protestants would say, but that's not the case. Catholics actually, on average, say the ideal family is slightly smaller than do Protestants. Coming up in the Daily Briefing, we'll look at Americans' perceptions of the impact of deadly diseases, including tuberculosis and malaria. I'm Dr. Frank Newport, Editor-in-Chief of the Gallup poll with Democracy on Demand. Take the Daily Briefing with you. Search for Gallup at the iTunes Music Store.